Lucas, what is going on here? We have Dell Computer who likes Bitcoin, and now right off the beginning of the day, you have pictures of Cookie Monster eating Bitcoin. Like, what is happening here?
Uh, did Michael Dell post that?
I yes, look.
Uh, no way. Who knew? Who knew? Oh well, I guess we should have known Michael Dell had a sense of humor. Me one Cookie Monster. Is
I think
this?
Alep's got some competition here. He's been giving Shoof those ones to post every night, those little Cookie Monster in the bed ones, and he keeps on challenging people to get some good AI images to back him up. And I guess he's got a challenge here.
Well, what is going on here? What did
Well,
scroll down?
well,
What?
no, no, hold on. Check this out. I think this is where it's all starting from, and the Twitterverse is a buzz with this information. So apparently, this kind of got kicked off here. Look at this. So Michael Saylor says something, and then Michael Dell jumps in and reposts it.
What?
So
No way. Um, well, Texas is going crazy for Bitcoin. I mean, Ted Cruz starts mining. Michael Dell is reposting. We've got exchanges moving to Dallas, who are going to be.
got Donald Trump getting $2 million from the Winklevoss twins.
Donald Trump is not Texas.
I no, I know, but I'm saying
GW,
it's part of what's going on. I wasn't trying to pin it to Texas. I know you were, but
I mean, okay, well, I mean, we got to claim Michael Dell. Love Michael Dell. Yeah, I don't want to shill for Michael Dell, but always love Dell computers. Wow. I haven't followed him, but I mean, I'm not surprised that Michael Dell is bullish on Bitcoin, but it seems that it's becoming the rage for people to. Yeah, you mentioned the Winklevoss. Did you happen to find out if it was a political action committee, or did they donate? Have we done away with the FEC now that we have crypto? Is Elizabeth Warren's fears coming true?
I have not gotten any kind of a follow up, and I have not been able to track it down, nor have I heard what address they paid to, how they moved the Bitcoin around. So nope, unfortunately not yet. But I think we should throw that on the screen quick, just in case not everybody is familiar with what we're talking about, so we can all kind of stay apprised of what's happening here. But just to reference this, so what happened was we've got the Winklevoss twins, who are famous for creating the Gemini exchange, right? Is that right?
Well, Gemini. What I mean, also the Winklevoss of Facebook beforehand, correct?
Yep, I think that they famously were involved in the early days. Yep.
I think the Harvard planning of Facebook or something. I don't know all the details. Need Aleph here for all those things. Rusty, do you know the details of the Winklevoss? And I don't remember what was. I never watched that movie, The Social Network. So I'm
I
I only.
watched the movie, but I don't know the role that they played. I did see that they made a massive donation to Donald Trump here with the Bitcoin, though. That was very impressive.
Well, and also interesting that was on the heels of the DJT token, Martin Kelly, and any update on what was going on there, Grant?
Well, let's stick with this for just a second, because
Okay,
I'm sure you'll
okay.
give us some historical perspective. So this immediately caught my eye when I read it, because when I read this, so here we're following up from this uh, top level post, which was Bitcoin Magazine reporting that the twins and Donald Trump, saying they've given some money, and it's like, okay, they gave money. Now here we're looking directly at the Winklevoss, Cameron, and Tyler, saying they both donated some amount of BTC, which is a very specific amount, which we should be able to go sleuth out. Like, that one actually shouldn't be that hard to figure out when this was done, because this is a substantive movement. So if they did this in one transaction each, this is also a very specific amount. This shouldn't be too hard to go find. Regardless, when they say they donated $1 million, right, to President Trump, correct me if I'm wrong here, Lucas, but you can't just give $1 million to somebody that's running a political campaign. If you're going to move some large amount of money around, the only way you can do that is through what, like a PAC or a super PAC? Like, do you know how that works?
Absolutely. I think the limit is what, $5,000 in a donation to a candidate from one person. So they would have had to they had to have sent this to a super PAC. And I actually looked up Donald Trump crypto PAC Political Action Committee to see if he was supporting any or had announced that he actually, I mean, the definition of a political action committee is that, yeah, so individual 5,000 per year.
Right. So
That's
I'm no stranger to political campaigns, and so you can't give $1 million.
Nope.
Can't
Well,
do
maybe
that.
there's some kind of a loophole here because maybe it's like money when realized, and it's not actually real money until he realizes it, and they're just getting him an asset. And if he never actually cashes it in, it's not actually giving him money towards the campaign.
No, nope, nope, nope. I
It's when you make a contribution, it's the value of the contribution at the time when you make it, and it
Yep.
has to be valued in dollars. So I can't say, well, I bought these raspberries, like 1 million years ago, so I'm going to give them to you. And since my cost basis is, 2 cents, like they're worth 2 cents, it's like, nope. You have to go out, fair market value, evaluate the contribution or whatever thing you did, and it's even in kind contribution. So like if you were to donate, say, raw materials to make campaign signs or something like that, that also counts.
Well, maybe we should put a call out to the Winklevoss if they do want to give this, and there isn't a political action committee yet. We'll form it. But yeah, the other like stipulation that makes a political action committee, I don't know, that is part of its definition is that it cannot be directed or have communication with the politician that it seeks to support. So, and I think we could also maybe hearken to what was the Steve Bannon lawsuit that everybody complained so much about? Camp, corporations are people. Grant, what's the or Rusty? Which one? I can't bring it to my mind. Uh, Damn it! It's Friday. It's Friday. It's too early for me. Citizens United. Citizens United. So Citizens United, I think, is part of the formulas for the Political Action Committee. So, well, but also great news that the Winklevoss and other, I mean, Michael Dell joining Michael Saylor to rally behind the Bitcoin. It was also, it looks like we have.
Well, let's stick on this political action committee just for a second. So yeah, giving a bit more context here. So a political action committee, this allows for a different type of funding. So they can take more money, but they're not supposed to directly be interacting with the candidate, to my recollection. So is this picture kind of prima facie evidence of crime here?
No, because we don't know
No?
when the picture was taken. We don't know. That could be an earlier picture.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying Bitcoin Magazine just like drummed this up from somewhere else, and
Sure,
like this wasn't
absolutely.
like the announcement picture of them shaking hands and transferring the Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I doubt that. I very much doubt that. If like Donald Trump certainly has political advisors. I don't I don't know if he made a comment about it on Truth Social. If he had announced it and posted the picture, there probably would have been some hemming and hawing. Um, I can't imagine the Democrats would have been upset about anything that he's done. But I would guess that
Well, it seems that things that the Federal Election Commission should have purview over isn't really being, listened to that well. A candidate we've been talking about with some regularity, Robert F.K. Jr. has been excluded from the debate that's coming up shortly, and that seems to have run afoul of FEC rules as well. So, I'm not sure exactly why these rules are not being allowed to stand. That this is the ruling that you had mentioned earlier about companies being able to act like people, and this was, I do recall this. This was a very contentious 5-4 decision that you know.
It's going to be interesting. I've always thought that Citizens United would actually age incredibly well once we had begin to, part of the narrative of elections by politicians today is, more money wins the race. And I thought Donald Trump definitively proved that was wrong in 2016. And it hasn't stopped journalists and the media and a lot of politicos from continuing to focus on what the campaign contributions are.
Well, do you think that that's a shift because it used to be that we were dominated by big media, and now we're sort of fracturing into these micro media channels of social media where most people are getting their news in their own little microcosms? I mean, I think, in times past, it was easy to do a big buy on cable TV, and then you could sort of get in front of a lot of people. Now we're all sort of looking at our phones and watching Netflix and various different YouTube channels and whatever. It's a little hard to do just like these big buys with big money that like get you influence over what everybody's thinking about. Am I thinking about this right? Or maybe that's why.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's part of it. I think that we have a democratization of access through platforms, especially like X and Twitter, previously, whatever we want to call it, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all of these things like make a person much more accessible. So think of the hoops and hurdles that you had to jump through to get your message out. I think on the other side of that is the truth, the long truth in politics, that politics is actually about ideas and policy solutions. And a great deal of those people without ideas or changes to policy solutions is theater and a charade. And the theater / charade market is that loves to promote this notion that more money is what sways politics. But I don't think that's the truth. I think that Donald Trump had the promise of different policies that had been implemented, especially by what we now call rhinos. I think that we would have seen a lot. I think we would have seen the likes of Ross Perot, Ross Perot doing a lot better in a world where there was a Twitter today. And he had a lot different policy solutions. I think Ron Paul would have. Ron Paul might have been president in a world of Twitter.
Well, I think Ron Paul presaged what we're seeing in politics. If there was one candidate who sort of, changed how everything worked, it was the grassroots money bombs, like all this kind of stuff that happened during that time. It was kind of the reverse of how things had happened, because it was very much peer to peer. It was word of mouth. It was, things that are kind of de jure how it works now. But I don't think that we would even have politics the way we did if it hadn't been for his campaign. And I think it's going to be viewed historically as one of the sea changes in politics. That was the mass populist movement, at least one of the last big ones.
I mean, I think Ron Paul has had several. It has untold number of opportunities to say "I told you so" these days, and I'm really glad that he continues to, engage in media, to have his show on YouTube. He's brilliant, and but going back to Citizens United, when the Supreme Court justices, and I've long thought about I don't know.
I want to stay on Ron Paul for a second. So like, I'm
Sure.
not sure if you know, but like, how old is Ron Paul?
Oh, he's got to be like 90 years old.
He's 88. So yeah, like 90 years old, and is more articulate than like the guys that are running right now. Way older and still like very, 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 very smart and still articulate. Very
Well,
amazing for 90 years old.
I mean, Ralph Nader, another third-party candidate. Ralph Nader, I heard give an interview recently, and he said something that I really loved. And I don't know that I politically aligned. I don't know, actually, I like Ralph Nader. Again, I think it's like what the policy solutions are, where he wanted to direct power. But in his interview, somebody said, "You're 90 years old, 91 years old, Ralph, and you are giving podcast interviews and writing books. How do you do it?" And he said, "I have never abandoned my morals." Um, and I thought that was great. And I would say that we could say certainly the same of Ron Paul. He didn't walk all over his lips to toe the political line. He always said exactly what he thought and has been righteous in his political motivations. And so I think that has worn him well. He looks great too. But go ahead. Yeah. 88 years old. Goodness. Ron Paul, Ralph Nader. And they're in great shape. But anyway, so Citizens United, this notion that that you couldn't limit the amount of campaign contributions toward political causes, I think really gets to an understanding of I don't know, the disassociation between like what the value of something is, like how much money you can throw at an idea. And I again, I know this is going to be unpopular because the narrative is that money changes politics, but in reality, I think that different ideas change politics, and throwing a bunch of money just gets you the same is like a fight amongst the lowest rung of politicians, so to speak. So and I'm very interested to see what happens as we have more private monies. We have more financial instruments like the Bitcoin that educate and give people options from only being able to jump in a swimming pool full of fiat currencies. So and I've also been, we mentioned briefly the Politify movement recently too. I'm very interested to see what happens when politicians and religions begin like using peer-to-peer monetary systems, blockchains for their shared for a shared ledger of value, their own currencies, their own monies. That's going to be incredibly powerful when we see that. And right now we see, dollars pouring into a legislative district and people jockeying to elect a politician, and that politician turns around and spends their money on what? On ads. And it's such a joke. What happens whenever that money is like redistributed by the politician through their to their constituency? I worked with a candidate in New Mexico who had a massive war chest. Especially given the, I say massive war chest, probably wasn't that big over the country writ large, but for his district, it was incredible. He represented one of the poorest areas of New Mexico, and he was talking. We were talking about what to do with that money whenever he was campaigning for re-election, and I was just like, write a check to every one of your constituents, like divvy up your war chest amongst them, and you'll be reelected every year again of your life. And that might sound like a reverse bribe or whatnot, but I think that politicians spending money on advertisements is perhaps the worst bang for the buck that you could ever get. Anyway, now I'm sure the FEC is going to be calling me, but because I don't know if that's legal or not. But again, politicians make the laws, and we should be constructing a world that's more fair for everybody.
All right, Lucas. So I want to say just a couple more things about Bitcoin and then get off this topic because we got to talk about water one more time because there's been some interesting things here. Some amount of discussion has been happening, and I think I'm interested to hear your perspective and have you clarify some stuff for us. So this is last thing I wanted to mention. So we've been talking about Bitcoin, what countries hold, whatever. I thought that this graphic was pretty useful to see sort of how much does everybody have and how distributed is it. The US holding an incredible amount of Bitcoin. This is absolutely shocking. Somehow the US always just lucks into whatever, first they manage to have the reserve currency, tank the currency through an insane amount of printing of dollars, and then somehow Japan and the rest of the world bails them out. Looks like we're on the brink of another, mass de-dollarization. Then crypto steps in and buys all the treasuries and stable coins, which we covered recently. So, it's like, and here we are with, the US holding the biggest amount of Bitcoin of all time. And another interesting thing that's going on here is Germany absolutely fumbling their bag. Like, this is like they're selling Bitcoin on the eve of Bitcoin becoming the reserve asset by most corporations and whatever else. And Germany shutting off their nuclear power reactors and then fumbling their Bitcoin bag. I'm thinking that people are going to look back at this time and say Germany made almost every single wrong move that they could possibly make.
Oh, I disagree, and I'm glad you brought up Germany because that's where I was going to mention. I didn't know if you had seen Germany selling their Bitcoin. What's the larger narrative of Germany? They have a energy problem.
But
They
didn't
do.
they shut off their nuclear reactors? Like, was that a good idea? That to me, I've always liked nuclear. I thought nuclear is great, but like, maybe I'm thinking about it wrong.
I mean, I look at Zaporizhia in the Ukraine. I look at Chernobyl in the Ukraine. I look at some of the issues that we've had at
Well, those are the old style reactors. I mean, that's 50
this.
something years ago. That we don't. I mean, we have little better technology than that to build reactors these days.
Well, so then fine. Then let's talk about Los Alamos National Labs outside of Albuquerque. Um, there have been some egregious errors that were. I mean, I don't know if you knew that all of the nuclear rods in the United States for power plants are stored at Los Alamos National Labs because we can't come to a political agreement as to where to put that material, which is going to be harmful to hazardous to human health and radiate the surrounding material for the next 50,000 years. I mean, let's talk about magnitudes and the things that are hard for us to grasp. So in the meantime, all of those nuclear rods are stored in warehouses outside of Albuquerque. And in the late 90s, somebody got the bright, like the way that the nuclear rods are stored is they're placed in the center of a 55-gallon drum and are packed with kitty litter. Kitty litter is inert. Well, sometime in the 90s, somebody started buying organic kitty litter instead of traditional kitty litter, and nobody figured that out for the next 15 years. But when they did figure it out, it was because the organic kitty litter had turned into a sludge and had eaten through the metal of the 55-gallon drums and was leaking out on the hangar floor in which they're stored. And so now that has been cordoned off and I think lined with concrete and is a problem that we're going to have to deal with and nobody knows what to do. But what was once, like uranium enriched metal rods that we had to handle carefully is now a massive amount of nuclear sludge. And that was just in the 30 or 50 years since there you go. What's the date on that? 2015. So there's also we had a
Lucas,
beautiful.
it never fails to amaze me the amount of knowledge that you have at your fingertips that you can access at a moment's notice. It's like I'm like, no, I was like, no way. And then I was like, I'm just gonna see if I can find it, and bam, there it is, like
Well, I
on
mean,
kitty litter.
look up a photograph of the five plutonium cores. You know, we had there's a bureau, like, the part of the problem is bureaucracy, part of the solution is bureaucracy, but one of the again, like, the lack of humans to realize what they can't see, you know, like the like, think of every child that must touch a stove to figure out that it's hot, and no matter how many times you tell them that a stove is hot, if they can't see the heat, then they're going to go touch it, and then that's burned into their memory. Well, that is a much bigger problem when we come to like the latent power of atoms. And anyway, maybe sometime around 2017 or so, there was a hire for the Department of Energy who went to visit the Los Alamos labs, a political appointee who demanded to see what they were all working on, and had all of the project lead heads there bring the plutonium cores so that he could look at them, and then he put them on his desk to take a picture of them. And it is a statistical anomaly that there wasn't a criticality incident at Los Alamos labs, and that there was not a gamma ray meltdown coming from his desk. And that was not in a controlled environment, and would have made Chernobyl look like a campfire. So those are the things that I worry about. Like, I also don't know if you've ever heard about and we got cobalt here. I think it was cobalt or a cesium core to a uh, a, uh, uh, a medical scanning device in Brazil. Are you familiar with that radioactive incident?
Wait, have I got the right thing?
No, that's back in the 50s. That's the Demon Core incident. That's the Demon Core that was dropped by one of the nuclear scientists. I forget his name, but he did end up picking it up and putting it back on the table and crawling out, and he died in a couple of days. And it's not a pretty death to recount. I so anyway, that, I guess those are my.
Wait a second. I think this is right. I just think it was talking about that at the beginning. See, look,
There you go. That's it.
yeah.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there should have been a blue flash and then pulsing blue light emanating from them, from so much plutonium coming into, and if they had been held, like, closely, like, just held together by hand, the person who had done so would have had one of the worst deaths imaginable. I don't know how long it would have taken, but
Right, because all it takes to get a runaway nuclear reaction is you just need to get enough material together into a pile, and then that causes a cascade of interactions beyond amongst the various nuclear materials, and then you get a meltdown, right?
yes, and I think this also, to maybe bring this back to money, because some people say, well, why worry? We've had peace for so long. Well, to me, it would seem that the peace that is being created in a post like uh, uh, Soviet United States Cold War sitting was paid for by by the United States taking advantage of the ability to print currency and have the world's reserve currency, and foisting that on the rest of the world and promising that we could pay it back to them. And I don't think that we're going to see anybody believe in that for quite some time. So then I look at conflicts like what's going on with Russia and Ukraine right now, and see, and I would say this, like again, Germany has the Weimar Republic, their history with central banking and colonialism, that um, and also war. I mean, World War I and World War II, that would make them very wary and understand the vulnerability of having those nuclear plants. And so I don't think that they were wrong for shutting them off, even though they've taken a lot of flack for doing so. They did so in the wake also of Fukushima. And I would say that, like, looking at the extreme weather events, and understanding that ice floats and water's heavy, and a lot of ice is melting right now, and that can cause some unprecedented weather and geothermic events. I don't think that they were stupid at all to shut them off. And I think that this is also why, going back to what started this conversation, that they're shedding Bitcoin, because they look at the network consensus reliance on electricity. Also, why Kazakhstan? Kazakhstan also goes back to this narrative. What does Kazakhstan have that would give them a sort of an unheard country with a small population so much Bitcoin? Well, they have tons of coal, so they're fired up all of their energy plants that they used to be piping into the Soviet Union, or to the Soviet Union, which Russia has then, like, on the back of fracking, had a natural gas explosion and can use that. So Kazakhstan had all this extra coal. They've been using it to mine Bitcoin. How good was that for the world? So that's what I think is going on there. And we mentioned Honduras, and I said that Honduras had made moves to shut up Honduras and Paraguay, and now other Latin American countries who are aligning behind the BRICS. And Bitcoin, and I'm going all over the rails here. Honduras had rolling blackouts the other day. Long story short, but Bitcoin, with its high reliance on proof of work and how much electricity that takes, it's one thing for people to realize what's going on with the dollar. And we lost Grant. Oh goodness, we might have to restart the show, Rusty. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that. Just noticed that. Did you see the chat? I found that link that I was mentioning earlier to us.
I do see it. Yep. Well, I wonder what happened to Grant. You there?
Not quite sure. Is there a way for us to bring him back in if he rejoins? Because doesn't he start him?
Grant just DM'd me, and he said that he has lost power. So we may have to reboot the show. We could pick it up. But perhaps Los Alamos, I don't know. Perhaps I've upset somebody with my contrarian takes on electricity and nuclear. Rusty, what do you think about nuclear? You've got a military background. I don't know if you think a lot about conflict and our notions of civilian notions of peacetime and vulnerabilities, but do you look at nuclear and see like problems, or do you think this is do you think I'm off base here with my concerns about nuclear vulnerabilities?
I think that the storage and the long life that some of these chemicals and like you were saying, that 50,000 years we have to deal with this before that they really go away, is something that we really don't take into grasp and consideration when we think about how much time that actually is and the impact that we're making and the years that we're here on the earth. Nuclear power is a great technology, but I don't think it's worth the risk. I think that right now we have increased our technology and increased our abilities that we can probably make some really nice state-of-the-art nuclear power plants. But I still think that we're delving in powers that we don't quite understand, and that we're just we don't quite concept what could be happening in the future. And I don't know if we really want to get into this tangent now when it's just a space between the two of us. But I always, think that, humans we're more of like a little virus on the earth, and we don't do a lot of good compared to the damage that we've been doing. And especially over the last, 100, 150 years, it's really been ramping up, and we don't seem to be turning around. And I think that, when you look at the stages of life and the way that, some of these ancient civilizations, that's kind of the downfall of what starts everything.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know if you've heard me call economy a perverse philosophy of more, but that's what it is. And economy comes to us from reformational notions of political order, of, the, of for people who I don't want to go too far down that tangent, but economy. They talk about efficiency, which is parsing resources up to find more by smaller shares, or by like colonialism, globalism, like reaching out of your backyard and taking from somebody else. And in reality, the world is round. The world is not a flat disk that expands infinitely, and there's some magical wall at the edge of that disk that of which we will find more and more resources. No, in reality, the world is a globe, and it goes back in on itself. So we have got to find other metaphors, other political solutions than this notion of economy that we've relied on for so long. And I think again, this is where blockchains have the emergent like agreements of who gets what, that public open ledgers can give us, is an incredibly powerful tool, and to me the most powerful. So this is why I'm very interested as we move maybe out of this concept of recreating gold, recreating a quote unquote gold standard, and using the technologies for tokenization of assets and divvying up of those assets. So no Grant back yet either. He messaged me. I think he's trying to get back in the room, but lost his power there. I think that we're still broadcasting. So do we want to move on to water without Grant, or should we?
Sure, if you want to try to continue the space, we can continue. I think it does say we're still live in the top left. So if we want to try to recover this, unfortunately, 1/3 of the host has lost power. We'll see if we can get him back. If you want to move on to water, but just real quickly, one thing I want to mention on Bitcoin before we leave the topic, since we're talking about it, I was watching Crypto Windio last night, and she was mentioning how when Bitcoin first started, it was heralded and celebrated as being decentralized, and anybody can access it if they have the ability and the technology. And we're kind of seeing that kind of turn and flip the other way now that the large um, economies and large countries and large hedge funds are getting into the cryptocurrency market and Bitcoin. And you saw that chart there that Grant was showing, that 38% of Bitcoin is now owned by the United States. It's not really becoming decentralized. It's becoming a centralized asset.
Well, absolutely, and I know that's part of the narrative of decentralized. In my mind, I often think when especially laser eyes are talking to me about decentralized, what they really like is the anonymous aspect of it. And I get the, like, Bitcoin has been a wonderful tool to help us help people realize the limitations of economy, or the concept of organizing the world around economy and the political order that surrounded that. But if we want political change, then I don't know that anonymity does us a great deal. And as for also this line that Bitcoin is decentralized, I saw Bitcoin. I mean, it's very interesting. Michael Saylor, like, I was on Market Street in San Francisco when the Bitcoin paper was released, and I had been aware of it for months leading into that. And Grant, welcome back. We're still on the Bitcoin conversation. I know you lost power, but glad to see you back in the room. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Well, and we were just about to switch over to the discussion on water. You dropped out when we were talking about nuclear power, but just to the note, to the line about Bitcoin being decentralized, I think that was a euphemism for anonymous. That we have now like moved into a world where we can exercise political power and take like control of money out of the hands of government and put it in at least give us options of different monies. And again, oh, Rusty, I was saying, whenever again, when Michael Saylor, bought into Bitcoin, like it became a different beast. And I've long thought that Bitcoin became centralized around the dollar. Like so many people, when they talk about Bitcoin, they're talking about what the value is in dollar, not not living in the one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin world, not using it for an exchange of value, and that has been a problem with it. Probably maybe some more heretical things for me to say as you get back in the room, Grant. But let's talk about water, because I think it's very interesting to what's going on in Idaho and what the narrative has been there. Grant, do you want to set any of
Right.
that
Yeah.
up?
So setting this up. So what we're talking about with respect to water, this little video has been making the rounds where we've got a couple of farmers that are talking about the fact that they're about to get fined for water usage, and it's linked back to a discussion that we had about senior water rights, junior water rights, and they even talk about that in this video where they're talking about the fact that these guys have junior water rights, and that the people with the senior water rights say, "Hey, you gotta send the water downstream from us," and they're complaining in this video about the fact that it's kind of outdated technology that's being used to run the canal. So yeah, fill us in, Lucas. What's really going on the Snake River here?
Well, this sort of makes me grind my teeth. Now, you've also seen mentions of cobalt mining, and this is all about a cobalt mine, which is part of the senior water rights holders. That ignores a legal concept in water law called classification. Now, the cobalt mine is going to have water that's classified as commercial water. And the farmers that you see in this video are going to have water that's classified as agricultural water. Other classifications that you have in water law are municipal water, recreational water, and ecological water. And by and large, like commercial and agricultural interests have the largest classifications and uses of water, and they are transferable. But most often, what you'll see is municipalities that buy agricultural water and get the classification of that changed to municipal water. So the line that these farmers here are telling you on this screen is not true. The water that they're taking and they're stealing from is the down user senior rights holders of the canal holders. And it may be true about evaporation, et cetera, in that canal. But in reality, the truth is not that a mine is stealing their water. It's that they were there late. They came after the technical innovation of wells. They are on the flat plain up above. So if you look on the Snake River, you'll see, and you can look to like at the topography, like maybe look up the Magic Valley in Idaho, because this mainly impacts the Magic Valley. And the Twin Falls Canal is that who lodged the complaint. The Twin Falls Canal is going again. So in your mind, like imagine a river coming down out of mountains, and it goes through a flat plain that's maybe at 5,000 feet. I'm not sure what the elevations are there. Maybe it's 4,000 feet, and then it drops down further off the step on the knee of the mountain, and there you go. There's the Magic Valley, and you come down off the step. There's a lot of basalt in that area too. You could see those black rocks on the side. You come down off of that high step, and that's where you get waters and springs that flow on top of a lower elevation. Okay, so when settlers and pioneers were coming out west and turning the area into farming, and they did not have an internal combustion engine or electricity to power drills to put straws down through 1,000 feet of the Earth's crust to dig into aquifers, and they had to dig wells by hand. Of course, they went to where the water was flowing on top, down in the lower elevations. And so the first people to get out there in the 1850s, 60s, 70s, 80s, those are the senior rights holders. Those are the farmers that went down to the lower elevation. And then after we have the ability to put in all of these wells, you saw a second era of farming that's introduced, and those are the ones who are having their water curtailed. And they keep their line is, well, we've had plenty of snow up in the mountains this year. Why aren't we getting our water? Well, there's a lake underneath them, and they haven't had a lot of snow in the mountains for the last 3 or 4 years, and that lake is almost empty. And the lower water users on the Twin Canal and a couple of other canal systems knew this was going to be an issue, and asked them years and years ago. I believe it was 2015. I believe it was 2015, which would have been after the droughts of 2007, 2008. Said that they were going to have to figure out plans for measuring the amount of water that they're taking. Water flows. That's the lake that sits above, even though it's underground. The Twin Lakes, I don't know, Twin Falls Canal, actually, or is it Twin Lakes Canal? Okay, yeah, Idaho Corporation. There's the Twin Lakes Canal Company. So anyway, there's a lot of farmers and people who rely on that water that flows out of the ground. And this narrative from the farmers who came late that their water is being taken from them by the state. No, their water was already appropriated, and they have been stealing water from the users of the Twin Lakes Canal. And that they are throwing a big old hissy fit and yelling and screaming about their water being appropriated from them. Well, if you start digging into the agreement in 2019, they were supposed to be at the very least measuring the amount of water that they were pumping out through their wells, so that the lower users knew how much that was being taken out of the aquifer that feeds their canal. And those who had their waters curtailed were the ones who did not bother to start measuring. So those water users up above, who in the water districts, who did incorporate and abide by that agreement, did not have their water curtailed. So these are things that like the nuance of it that just drive me crazy.
Is this the one that we're talking about?
Yes, the 2019 settlement agreement. So that's what establishes that the water districts that are relying on the aquifer in the higher elevation area need to start measuring the amount of water that they're using, so that then we can come to an agreement as to like how much water is in the aquifer, how much is in the watershed, and how much needs to be divvied up between the junior rights holders and the senior rights holders down below. And some of these people just didn't want to do it. They wanted to pump as much water as they could to grow their potatoes that nobody wants to eat anyway, and then turn around and moan. And I mean, we've also had a conversation about what happened in the 1930s with regards to crop insurance and government programs to control the prices and set the prices, and how in the 30s and previous to that there was a supply control, and the government would go out and tell farmers to plow up their fields, or herd a bunch of cattle into a whole bunch of sheep into a tailwater pit and shoot them all to kill off the crop, to reduce the supply, to drive up the price. And now the government since then has been using money generated in crop insurance to set the prices before. And so these people want to take advantage of that system and grow whatever the hell they can, with no regard to the water use of that they're taking from the people down below them. So that's why I don't buy this. I don't buy this pity party one bit.
So then, what you're saying is this company that's doing the cobalt mining, they've got the prior claim on the water, and according to this agreement, the farmers that were taking water via the wells, they were supposed to measure what they were doing, and what they failed to abide by the agreement, and that's why they're getting the fines.
Well, and not only that, but the cobalt is one of numerous shareholders of the senior rights and the Twin Lakes ditch system. And there's a lot of farmers in that, like by far many more farmers, and they also again have different classifications of water. and the agricultural water, yeah, that's whose water that they're stealing. These people came late, they put straws in the ground, and they're sucking up the water that came to the people down below them and ran out on the surface. And now they're saying like, oh, these people are stealing our water. No, no. When you sit down, you go to a buffet and you order a buffet of all you can eat, and you go sit down at your table, and then 50 more people come and are standing at the buffet and eating all the food there because they don't have a table. When the kitchen says no, you can't eat all that food. They're it's not the kitchen who's stealing their food. They're taking food from people who had already sat down at tables. And this whole notion that, oh, it's a corporation, it's a mining corporation, and farms have a greater right to water than a mine does is bupkis. Like, water flows across districts, and they have used a technological innovation. They came late to the game, and they came to a set of rules that were already established, and they don't just get to throw a hissy fit and change the rules, which sadly is what we've seen happen.
Very interesting. Well, I appreciate the perspective on water, Lucas. I know that you're very, very, very knowledgeable about this topic, and I think it's going to be a thing that needs to be paid attention to significantly. And I know that we've covered it at least once, and so when this came up, I was immediately thought of our conversation that we had previously, and thinking about what's going on here, and really appreciate the perspective you've been able to bring on this, like and the concepts of senior and junior water rights and abiding by agreements. This is all very nuanced stuff, and it's easy to have a knee-jerk reaction to these things, but it's always good to get a good broad perspective on what's going on from somebody that's really knowledgeable. So really appreciate that.
Well, I would definitely love to talk more about it and talk about solutions. You can sell commercial water up and down a river. I don't know in Idaho if you can sell agricultural river up and down that water. To me, all water should be able to be purchased and bought and sold up and down the river. We talked in the earlier episode about the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and trying to create water futures back in 2020, and look at the date again on that agreement, 2019. The many people who were interested in water begin to understand that this was an issue, and that just having a rule written down and having the sheriff or your local authorities try to go enforce that was going to be problematic, and that we needed to solve it through this old technical innovation we have that's called money, and that's going to become more and more into the fray. Also in 2023, the federal government paid the states of California and Nevada $1.3 billion, and I don't know how much they paid to the country of Mexico for water that was supposed to be sent down the Colorado River that was soaked up by Colorado and Utah and New Mexico, the states up at the headwaters. And so it's going to become very much an issue, and we're going to need to figure out how water users up above the river can be paid or have some sort of incentivization process to give up their water. We are coming up to the end of the hour. I wanted one more thing that I thought interesting while it's happening to discuss was, did you happen to see an Uber replacement? I think it's Teleport, a project on the Solana blockchain for
Yeah, let's throw that on the screen and talk about that for a second. And let me look that up. Keep talking for a second. Let me get that loaded.
Absolutely. Well, years and years ago, there was a movement of the sharing economy, and using our computer networks, the internet, to match users with providers, to solve that sort of matching problem, to get rid of older notions of, like, say, charter companies, taxi cab companies, and and where you could monetize your car and go out and and give rides to people, or monetize your house, Airbnb, VRBO, and let people stay in it when you weren't using it. And sadly, what we've seen in that is not that, I mean, when you go stay in an Airbnb now, is it cheaper than a hotel that you used to stay in? It was for a little while, but now Airbnb has lots of fees and marketing promotion. Uber and Lyft, the middleman, once they opened up that technology and got a whole bunch of people using it, began to extract their due. And here with the blockchain, we have the ability to take that concept and lock it into a contract, lock that middleman into contract, truly lock it into code, to code the world, and and allow the people who have the asset to monetize that asset without relying on the third party to provide that matching service. So that's what I saw with Teleport. I'm extremely bullish on it. I think, or just this notion, because I don't know a lot about Teleport, but I do know that using blockchains to to step in for the third party providers of this traditional sharing economy is going to be massive. You know, we've also seen this a little bit on Solana with regards to internet access, and I forget what it's called in Miami, but there's internet provider there that's also using Solana for people to be using their equipment. Are you familiar with that one? Or maybe we should save that for another conversation. Thoughts about
well, I think I know what you're talking about, but yeah, let's maybe cover that one in a bit more detail. I think we didn't even give this one enough time, so but I think teasing this that we want to get into a bit more detail on what's going on here. But this one just briefly scratched through into the sort of common thinking process of what's going on in the world here. So yeah, I saw this come across. I'm always interested whenever a real world use case intersects with blockchain, and I think this ability for blockchains to help facilitate buyers and sellers, whether it be of a variety of different assets, whether it be water, or in this case, people who want to buy access to a ride, and people who want to sell access to a ride. It seems like a great use case for blockchain. I haven't had a chance to dig into this one too deeply, so I think it deserves a bit more research on my part. And yeah, let's cover this in a bit more detail. But I think teasing it today is great, because we wanna talk about this a bit more.
Absolutely. Well, let's tackle it next week, and let's throw in. And again, I can't believe I can't recall off the top of my head the company in Miami, but I think diving into what's happened there, because ever since it launched, I have not paid that much attention. But I think, and maybe we can talk about hash nets. I would love to get your technical analysis of hash nets, the possibility of them, what they might look like, where we might apply them. But great conversation today. Sorry you missed out for a little bit, but Rusty and I just kind of went back and forth over nuclear energy. Um, I wonder what Ron Paul and H. Ross Perot would say about nuclear energy. But great talk today. Great week. We have a special guest coming on next week. Could you tell us a little bit about our special guest coming on I believe it's Wednesday, and then let's close it out.
Yeah, Wednesday we've got a judge that's running for, or we've got a candidate that's running for judge in Minnesota here, and he said that he is willing to come in and talk to us. Very interested in liberty topics, a lot of things that we've been brushing on in the show. So Hanson for judge, he's said that he's going to come join us on Wednesday, so we'll be having a chat with him. And yeah, that I think we're going to have him for an hour. Usually we get special guests on. We tend to have him for a couple hours, but he said he can only join us for an hour. So on Wednesday, we'll be talking to a candidate who's running for judge and knows a lot about all the kind of concepts that we talk about here. Liberty, Ron Paul, things of crypto nature. He's schooled in the art and knows lots about it, and is currently running for office. So we've had one political candidate on before when we had Todd Fine on, who is running for president. And so hopefully we can get a chance to talk to a few people in politics. I know we're trying to get a few of these queued up. So we've got one set for Wednesday.
We know I reached out to the Robert Kennedy Jr. campaign too, and they even responded, which was not a yes, but they at least responded. So wouldn't it be a dream if we could get them on? But enough about that. It's 11 here. Let's close it out. Rusty, anything before we close it out?
Oh, nothing. I did drop the link in the chat, our special chat about Zach XBT being awarded for proving that the owner of not the owner, the developer, that DJT disaster of a token yesterday. I just thought it was interesting that, he was able to prove that it was created by that person and was paid out for it.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll pick up that next week. Yeah, Zach XBT got paid for his blockchain sleuthing, and what a nice number to be paid too. Let's pick that up too. Let's see where that goes. Let's keep our eye on it. But I call not it as far as listening to Martin Shkreli's Spaces. So everyone, yeah, Grant, I think you just said you're it.
Nice. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Ciao.